Welcome to Hardly, where books turn into 3 stories, refreshing your knowledge in minutes. Today we study together Brody Mullins and Luke Mullins' book, The Wolves of K Street, The Secret History of How Big Money Shaped Washington, in which we probe into how corporate lobbying has evolved from behind-the-scenes influence to a dominant force in shaping U.S. policy, prioritizing profits over public good, and the transformation of American democracy. Brody Mullins is a Pulitzer Prize-winning investigative journalist. Luke Mullins is a contributing writer at Politico magazine, where he covers the people and institutions that control Washington's levers of power. Don't go away. Hardly the editor will be right back with the story. Lobbying firm that redefined political influence, a high-stakes negotiation that altered the course of federal regulations, and the cunning tactics of a corporate powerhouse that turned lobbying into an art form. The story begins with the powerful Washington lobbying firm Patton Boggs, a name that quickly became synonymous with high-stakes political maneuvering. It all started in the late 1970s when the firm was still young, but rapidly gaining a reputation for its bold, aggressive approach. Tommy Boggs, the son of a prominent congressman, led the charge. His strategy was simple yet groundbreaking. Rather than merely influencing individual lawmakers, he would shape public opinion and, in turn, leverage that influence to sway Congress. One of the firm's early successes came when they were hired by a major pharmaceutical company facing a public relations crisis over a dangerous side effect linked to one of its blockbuster drugs. Boggs knew that to protect his client, he needed more than just favorable votes. He needed to change the narrative entirely. Utilizing an array of tactics, from strategically placed op-eds to a massive lobbying campaign targeting state legislators, Boggs orchestrated a full-blown media blitz. The book notes, he helped turn the tide of public opinion, effectively neutralizing the crisis and ensuring the company's continued success. But this wasn't just about a single victory. It was about establishing a new model for lobbying. With each campaign, Patton Boggs refined its tactics, combining traditional lobbying with public relations, grassroots organizing, and policy analysis to create a comprehensive approach that would set the standard for the industry. And with each victory, their influence and their client list grew. One victory led to another, and soon Patton Boggs was not only the go-to firm for corporate America, but also a political force unto itself. This story sets the stage for the next, where we see how the firm's innovative strategies would be put to the test in a high-stakes battle over environmental regulation. In the 1980s, the Environmental Protection Agency, EPA, was under pressure to enforce stricter emission standards on the auto industry, a move that threatened to upend the business models of some of the nation's largest car manufacturers. Patton Boggs was hired to navigate these treacherous waters. Tommy Boggs devised a plan to bring together a coalition of stakeholders, including car manufacturers, oil companies, and even labor unions, all of whom had a vested interest in opposing the new regulations. The key was to frame the debate not as an environmental issue, but as an economic one. The firm sponsored economic studies that highlighted the potential job losses and economic downturns that could result from the stricter standards. They organized town halls and press conferences to showcase the human cost of these regulations, putting a face on the issue that was hard for lawmakers to ignore. By shifting the focus, as the book describes, they were able to paint a picture of widespread economic collapse should the new rules be implemented. The lobbying blitz was a resounding success. Not only did the coalition manage to delay the implementation of the new standards, but they also set a precedent for how future regulations would be negotiated. This case marked a turning point in how corporate interests could align against government policies perceived as threats, highlighting the growing sophistication and influence of lobbying firms. And yet, this victory was not without its complications. It drew significant backlash from environmental groups and sparked a national debate over the power of lobbyists in shaping public policy. This would lead to the third story, one that involves a different kind of fight, a battle for transparency and accountability in the lobbying industry itself. By the early 2000s, K Street, home to Washington's most powerful lobbying firms, was the epicenter of American political power. However, with great power came greater scrutiny. Amid growing concerns over the opaque nature of lobbying activities, there was a push to bring more transparency and accountability to the industry. But the lobbyists on K Street were not willing to give up their influence without a fight. One of the most memorable battles during this period was over the introduction of new lobbying disclosure laws. Lobbying firms led by giants like Patton Boggs launched a coordinated campaign to water down the proposed regulations. They argued that these new laws would undermine their ability to effectively advocate for their clients. Behind closed doors, they worked tirelessly to build a coalition of lawmakers who would support their cause, leveraging every connection and every favor they had amassed over the years. But this was a battle fought on multiple fronts. At the same time, firms like Patton Boggs also worked to shape public perception, using media campaigns to argue that the new laws would stifle free speech and hinder economic growth. Through a mix of backroom deals and public relations, the book highlights, they were able to soften the regulations, ensuring that they remained in the shadows while appearing to concede ground on transparency. Despite their efforts, some changes were inevitable. The lobbying disclosure laws that were eventually passed were far weaker than initially proposed, but they marked the beginning of a shift towards greater accountability. This story illustrates the lengths to which K Street firms would go to maintain their influence and the complex interplay between public policy and private interests. These three stories collectively illustrate the arc of corporate lobbying's evolution from a behind-the-scenes operator to a dominant force in American politics. The transformation wasn't just about more significant spending or more aggressive tactics. It was about redefining the very nature of influence in Washington, from shaping public opinion to aligning diverse interests against common threats and fighting to keep their strategies hidden from view. These stories reveal a world where corporate power and political influence are intricately intertwined. The overarching theme here is the adaptation and evolution of lobbying strategies to maintain and expand influence in a constantly changing political landscape. It's a tale of ingenuity, power, and the relentless pursuit of advantage, revealing the complex dynamics that drive the interplay between government and big business. As the editor of Hardly, we learn that by understanding these tactics and strategies, we can anticipate future political maneuvers, allowing us to navigate the complexities of power and influence with a more critical eye toward the forces shaping our world. In reviewing the evolution of corporate lobbying and its deep entrenchment in American politics, we return to our key point: how corporate lobbying transformed from a behind-the-scenes operation to a powerful driving force shaping U.S. policy. One story that encapsulates this transformation involves a lobbying firm's maneuvering during the financial crisis of 2008. As the financial system teetered on the brink of collapse, Washington became the battleground for corporate survival. Major banks, facing potential ruin, turned to their lobbyists on K Street to secure a bailout. One of these firms took an aggressive stance, setting up round-the-clock war rooms and drafting proposed legislation for lawmakers. They pushed the narrative that without immediate government intervention, the entire economy would crumble. Their efforts, as noted in the book, were relentless, framing the crisis not as a result of their clients' actions, but as a systemic failure that demanded an urgent federal response. This lobbying blitz paid off. The resulting bailout ensured the survival of the banks and underscored the immense power and influence that corporate lobbyists wielded, even during national emergencies. It also set a precedent for how financial crises would be handled in the future, through aggressive lobbying and well-coordinated media campaigns. In essence, corporate lobbying has become a crucial, if controversial, element of American democracy, revealing how intertwined big business and politics have become. As the editor of Hardly, we understand that recognizing these power dynamics helps us to be more vigilant citizens, ready to question who truly shapes the policies that govern our lives.